All right, I want to go to Professor Roger Griffin. What seems to be happening with the right wing is a question of identity here. It's the centre ground of all faith and politics. But do you think the right are taking this question of identity?
There are genuine issues about identity, and it is extraordinarily naive to think that you can have a major transformation of Europe such as has occurred since 1945 with mass immigration throughout Europe and the existence of a growing number of people who are not a part of the European Christian or post-Christian background without there being tensions. I mean, it would be extraordinary if there weren't responses like the National Front in France or the League in Italy. But the fact is that the centre ground, for example, let's just take Britain, the leading parties are so frightened of talking about race and identity and multiculturalism in an intelligent, historically grounded way that it has left a sort of vacuum which can be exploited by people on the far right, because they seem to be the only people, the BNP, the EDL, and I do agree they are different parties, UKIP, and there are equivalents throughout Europe. They seem to be the only people addressing these important issues.
We are not racist, and we're not. You can't talk about us in the same breath. If these issues are not addressed, because Christianity is being marginalised all over the UK and in Europe, it's under constant attack all over the world, and because of this, people are not addressing the problem. There will be more Anders Breiviks if the issues are not addressed, because people feel that they are being put back to the wall and they've got nowhere to turn. There was an elephant in the room and everybody is pretending not to see it.
Sure, let's go to Aslak Meyer. You're a former socialist politician and author. Aslak, do we have this same kind of vacuum in Norway?
We do have an ongoing debate on immigration, and we have many of the same movements as in England, but we do not have the same extreme class system as England has, and we do not have the poverty as you find in Luton, in Leeds, in Birmingham and other English cities and suburbs. So the conflict has not been that extreme as you found in England, as you'll find in France, and I think it will grow in Italy and Spain, Greece and other countries as the European social crisis moves on. And I think that if I'm trying to be serious with Mr. Carroll of the British Defence League, which is quite difficult, I must admit, considering his paranoia, but if you're trying to be serious of what he's saying, the issue at stake...
Let Aslak continue. Aslak, carry on.
The issue at stake is not how many Muslims are there in your neighborhood, but how many jobs are there in your neighborhood. And when you have, at the same time as you have in England, Prime Minister Cameron and Prime Minister Blair before him destroying the welfare system and actually creating a society where you live outside of society on the dole, and at the same time have mass immigration, you see that some people will address this at Islam. And you have, of course, as Professor Griffith says, you can't change society as much as Europe has been changed after the Second World War without having tensions. But the question is, what will you do with this situation? And some people, and a growing number of Europeans, intellectuals and people like Mr. Carroll, they want to use the situation to tell us that we are living in the Crusades. We are living in an age where there will be an eternal war between Islam and Christianity, and this war we must fight. And I think that is what Mr. Carroll has in common with Anders Breivik.
I want to go to Omar Al-Hamdoun, the president of the Muslim Association of Britain. Now, we're concerned, as Roger says, by this vacuum in which, as Aslak has just said, is this ongoing fight from the right's perspective between right wing and also Islam.
First of all, can I say, I mean, it's to a certain extent, it's ridiculous to distinguish between Islam and Muslims. A Muslim is someone who lives by Islam, and a proper Muslim is someone who abides by Islam. Now, what we have is a problem. Muslims, yes, we have extremists. There are a very small minority, but we're there. As Muslims, we are denouncing this extremism. The equivalent of Muslim extremism is people like the EDL. They are the equivalent of Muslim extremism. And I think British society as a whole is denouncing the EDL. The EDL. No.
Let Omar continue, Kevin.
But
I'll come to you straight afterwards.
The EDL.
Kevin, I'll come to you straight after Omar's finished.
We We didn't murder anybody, and we haven't murdered anybody.
Kevin, we'll come to you straight after Omar.
Yes, but people like Breivik are actually, they are nurtured and inspired from your kind of ideology and your kind of thought. And the way that you carry on with scaremongering people, you will produce more extremism. Yes, you are scaremongering people. You are scaring people because you are not giving people...
Even the MAB, that was founded in 1997 by Kamal El-Abouri, and he, at the time, was the European spokesman for Muslim Brotherhood.
So, and what's that got to do with it?
Well, you're talking about Islamism.
Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt is now a political party, and it's working in the democratic situation. So, in fact, it's not only something that is there, but it's in the mainstream Middle Eastern politics, which the British government has to deal with. So what kind of reference is that? I mean,
so what you're saying is you're trying to tell me that Islam is pro-democracy?
Well, of course. I mean, you keep scaring people about Sharia law. Sharia law. Do you think that some people are going to paratroop out the sky and just impose Sharia law in the House of Parliament? Sharia law.
No, but we already have 100 Sharia law courts.
Yeah, but this is the same as what you have with Christians. You have with Jewish.
You do. This is a Christian country. I live in a Christian country.
Kevin, let him finish. Let him finish his point, Kevin.
There are people. There are the Jewish community and the certain parts of the Christian community who choose to. They have their special tribunals where they can go and they can discuss matters. And these Sharia courts that you're referring to, they are to do with personal law. People, two Muslims, a man and a wife, or two people, business partners, they go because they want independent mediation. So they go to the Sharia.
All right, let's bring this back onto track. Kevin, let's bring this back onto track. There's lessons that we have to learn here from the Breivik tragedy. How to deal with multiculturalism, and how do we get there, and how do we stop him from doing that again?
Well, multiculturalism hasn't failed in Britain. Multiculturalism has worked in Britain. It's Islam that's failed to integrate.
You're trying to make it fail.
No, Islam has failed to integrate because they've self-segregated, and they only want to be amongst themselves. They haven't integrated in England, and this is what the problem is. It's called
Roger Griffin, Professor of Modern History, Oxford Brookes. How do we deal with multiculturalism now, and what do we learn from Breivik?
Let's use this conversation as an example of what can happen. I mean, we've got some very different opinions here. What I'd like to say to Kevin is that actually Kevin has got a lot in common with Omar. You both condemn extremist, Islamist Muslims who want to impose their way of their traditions, their faith on the whole of Britain. And what should happen is a proper debate within the mainstream society, an intelligent debate which has been avoided largely by the mainstream parties, which take on board the sort of fears, and I don't think they're just paranoid, that Kevin and his colleague have, and so that we can actually move liberalism and tolerance on. There is a genuine moderate tradition within Islam. It has to become a strong tradition and marginalize extremists. I do not think that Kevin's EDL is neo-Nazi or violent, but it can very easily be misinterpreted as fomenting violent extremism and polarization. And I think this sort of discussion, we shouldn't end up hating each other. We should end up wanting greater debate and more understanding about each other's point of view. And so what I'm saying, what we should do with the Breivik affair, and it's happening all over Europe, is to use it as a catalyst, a stimulus for more intelligent debate of the real issues about faith, identity, society, and the sort of future we want, separately and communally. And we can't just allow extreme or simplistic opinions to take over the debate.
A reminder that you're listening to The Voice of Russia in London. I'm Daniel Sinner. Joining me is Omar El-Hamdoun, the president of the Muslim Association of Britain. Kevin Carroll is co-leader of the English Defence League. Aslak Siremaya is a former socialist politician and author in Norway. And Roger Griffin is a professor in modern history at Oxford Brookes University. Aslak, you're from the former socialist politician and author. Do you think that the liberal ideology in Western Europe has spawned a monster like Breivik?
No, I think basically what spawned the monster like Breivik is right-wing extremism and Islamophobia. This is where he has found the soil where his extremism has grown. This is where he spent his days. This is where he spent his debates and found his facts, or facts that is in curses because they're not facts. But I do agree with Gifford at one point, and that is that we have to have a public, intelligent debate where we address social issues and questions concerning integration, religion, and culture. But if we are going to have such a debate, we have to start with the actual facts. And the problem with having the debate of today is that, yes, the liberal left and some of the liberals won't do this debate because they don't live in areas where you have immigrants. They don't live around Muslims, and they just don't want to be non-political correct somehow. But the other thing is that the extreme right has made it their way of doing debate to come with facts that are untrue and then base the debate on this. So you have to start the debating on the premises that
18,000 terrorist attacks.
Well, let us continue. Kevin, we're going to go around the table. I'll come to you straight afterwards. Aslak, please continue.
Can I please continue?
Yes, please go ahead.
So the thing I want to say is that one example of this, which makes it very difficult for me to debate this, is that we have a fact. That is that Anders Behring Breivik has killed 77 people in the name of the right wing, of the fascist, of the English Defence League, or whoever, saying that he is doing his political thing based on this ideology. He is comparable to Al Qaeda. He compares himself to Al Qaeda. He's an extremist within ideology. But English Defence League and many of Mr. Carroll's compatriots all over Europe does not want to debate this. So I think if we're going to sort this out, we have to be able to discuss this without what I call a paranoia, without the idea that we always have to discuss how big the problem of Islam is.
Sure, I want to come to Kevin and also to Omar before we've only got a short amount of time left. So Kevin, if you could keep it short, how do we deal with multiculturalism and what do we learn from Breivik?
Well, multiculturalism has worked in the UK. The only section of the community that hasn't worked, because it hasn't integrated, is Islam. And whilst Christianity is under constant attack,
but what do we learn from Breivik? How do we stop someone like Breivik?
Unless these issues, because there are real, serious, genuine concerns and fears by the non-Islamic community in Europe and in the UK, unless these fears are seriously addressed, you will see more Breiviks. But this is a reality. People need to wake up and smell the coffee here, because Islamists are on the rise. It's not a fallacy. They are actually doing it. No one in the English Defence League has murdered anybody. No one from there.
All right, I'm going to go to Omar now because we're coming right up to the end. Omar Hamdoun, final word on this. How do we deal with multiculturalism and what do we learn from Breivik?
I mean, from a Muslim perspective, I'm a Muslim. I'm British Muslim. I'm here. I'm not an immigrant. I'm here, and British Muslims are here to stay, and they feel that they definitely they are part of the solution. They can give lots of solutions to society. To say that Muslims have not integrated is totally silly. There's Muslim MPs, there's Muslims in the House of Lords, there's Muslim doctors, lawyers, everywhere, on every level, in every aspect. Sharia law is not like you want to make it out as if it's just one thing. Sharia law is a whole number of systems. There's lots of systems where, in fact, one aspect, for example, financial system, would have not allowed us to come into this economical crisis that we have, where interest is actually allowed to.
What is it that we need to do now, then, Omar?
We need to, I think, like the Professor Griffith mentioned, is that we need to really have proper discussions without scaring people, and try to really work to proper solutions to get rid of all types of extremism from all spheres and from all backgrounds.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you to all of my guests. Omar El Hamdoun is the president of the Muslim Association of Britain. Kevin Carroll is the co-leader of the English Defence League. Aslak Siremaya is a former socialist politician and author in Norway. And Roger Griffin is a professor in modern history at Oxford Brookes University.